Hey everybody, welcome to etrailer.com. I'm Bobby and today we're taking a look at the Glacier Chain snow cable chains here on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. So these are going to be a pretty decent way of giving us some traction control, albeit we do have steel rollers here today. So they're not going to be your most aggressive option. What they are going to be though, really smooth when you are driving. Not going to see too much difference. Obviously there's going to be a little bit there, but definitely not compared to your standard set of chains where we really start feeling them. That steel roller hopefully going to help us glide a little bit, but still providing a little bit of that traction that we're looking for. So it is going to be made of a low carbon steel on here, so not going to be the most resistant to corrosion. I would highly recommend making sure we're spritzing this down, especially if we have any kind of chemicals on the roads. That way it doesn't degrade even faster. In storing these guys, it can be important to make sure they're not stored anywhere too humid. Otherwise, you could see a little bit of rusting on here, and we will make sure we can utilize them as much as we can. Now, one thing that's pretty cool about the cable chains, not too hard to actually get on your vehicle. Very straightforward, which is nice to see. I do like these rubber stoppers as well, making sure that our sidewall isn't going to be seeing any damage. Now you are seeing a ladder style chain on here as well. What that means, you can see we're creating these hills, right, in these valleys. So you really do feel that as you drive. Again, the steel rollers kind of cut that down a little bit compared to your standard chains. But what's nice about that, you're going to get better start and stop maneuvers. So as you're going straight, you're going to feel those hills and valleys. The one thing that they do though is kind of harsh on your turning capabilities. What I mean by that, as we're making our left and our rights, we're gonna have to accelerate to actually get over those hills every time. So that can lose you a little bit on your turning radius. If you are a little bit worried about that, you could look at something like a diamond style chain, and therefore you're getting more chain coverage and you're not feeling those kind of hills and valleys every time. But I really do like how easy these are to get installed. Now personally, I would look at something like the Koenig XG12 Pro. Why that is, I just think the chainage is a little bit better quality. We don't have just steel rollers. We're actually getting good chains that are going to be biting through that snow and that ice. I primarily see this, if you just have light dustings or a little bit of ice and snow on the roads, breaching into that kind of medium dusting, of course. Great way just to stay legal inside your car as well. That way, for some reason, if you do need chains, you have them in your vehicle, they're ready to rock and roll. And one thing I do like about it as well, we are going to need Class S compatible chains. We have almost no room here between our front tires and that strut. So we're going to need something that's not going to be rubbing up right on there. So that's something that's great about this. You're probably going to be hard pressed to find any chains you can fit on the front of your Jeep Grand Cherokee that aren't Class S compatible. So I like that we have that in mind. But yeah, the install is not going to take too much time. So why don't we go ahead and see how we can get it on. Before though, just a few little caveats today. I do have this on a 265/60 R18 tire. Let's make sure we're putting our own tire size into the fit guide here at etrailer.com. That way we're getting the right fit for us at home. And secondly, I do have this on the front wheels here today. Now all Jeep Grand Cherokees are going to have that 4-wheel drive capability. Why I like having it on the front here, we're doing all of our steering, and as we come to a stop as well, the car is actually going to shift forward, right? That weight. If we were to try to make a stop, we're going to make sure we're getting traction here on those front wheels. So that's why we have it here on the front today. Now on the back, you could go for a little bit of a heavier duty chain. That's the one advantage. And to that end, it's always helpful to have 2 sets of chains, one on your front wheels and one on the back. That way you get the most traction that you're looking for. Why don't we go ahead and see how we can get it on our vehicle here today. To begin our installation, what we want to do is actually just lay it out just like you're seeing. One thing that's really nice about these cable tire chains, really doesn't find yourself binding up too bad. Usually your biggest issue is maybe one of these guys has been flipped under, but honestly, they're really easy to walk out, which is definitely kind of a clear advantage versus your regular tire chains. They just don't seem to get caught up quite as much. But the other thing we need to look out for though, we are going to have some hard points of contact. What that is, you can see here as it's been bent over, you're going to have these little sharp edges. So we need to make sure that's actually away from our tire. Don't want that puncturing or doing any other type of damage to it. And then we just need to bring ourselves to the middle here of our chains. And since we're going to be setting this on our tire, that's why I have them flipped up. Now, there is going to be a secondary option for installing these. You could flip these over, make sure those hard parts in contact are towards the ground, and then you could drive on this and envelop over the top. But as it stands today, we can still do it this way. I just simply want to find myself in the middle here of my chain, start fitting it on my tire, Be gentle with those rims. We don't want to be damaging anything. And just setting it on here like so. One thing I'm also going to try to look for here as I size this up, making sure my bottom connections are towards the bottom as much as I can. And I want this as perpendicular as I can get it. What I mean by that, where your cross chains are, if you have them at an angle like this, we want to try and walk that out, make sure both of our connections are straight across from each other. But now we need to bring ourselves on the other side of our tire to make our first connection. Here we are on the underside or the backside of our wheel. What we need to do, take our extra chain here and our connector and start slotting them in. Now I do find kind of pushing this guy like so can be helpful. And we are going to try to take out quite a lot of the slack here. As I can see, there's quite a little bit. Now we don't need to go too crazy. And again, we may come back resizing this up, and that can be just a little bit of trial and error. Why it's always nice to put this on in your garage before. And one thing I like to do though, when you're underside here, this might be hard for you guys to see, is push this up against your wheel. You don't want it too close to your rim or too far from your sidewall. You want it right there in the middle. For your extra chains here though, you are gonna have a little plastic clip right there, that red guy. Just take your extra chain, clip it on. That way it's not rattling around. Now we need to bring ourselves to the front of our wheel and start inserting our front connection. So we're gonna have these brackets once again, just like the back, and we're just gonna be walking these guys in, trying to get it as tight as we can before we actually even utilize our lever. Maybe one more here. There we go, and that looks pretty good to me. And then we simply bring this lever back down into this position here. And one thing that can end up happening, this little plastic clip can get a little bit in the way. Simply move it like so, push that in, and there we are, nice and aligned. So I can see that I have just the barest amount of slack left in here. One thing I'm gonna suggest with these guys is also grabbing ourselves some rubber tensioners. That's gonna take out that last little bit of slack that we're seeing. And again, we have a little bit more room to cinch up that back, so that could be helpful as well to make sure we're nice and aligned. We have a little extra clip here as well. Maybe this gives you a better look of what we were trying to do on the back side of the wheel. And simply slot that guy in there. I would probably take off this tag eventually. I'm gonna leave it on for any of our other neighbors out there, but that way we're not having this flap around. But let's grab that tensioner and see if we can't take out that last little bit of slack. So I grabbed myself some rubber tensioners. These are also available here at etrailer.com. They're gonna be great. Just take out that last little bit I was talking about. So down here, I really don't wanna mess up this too much, right? We don't want clamping on here. Our best bet is to maybe try to avoid it. Let's see if we can get two on this side, see how that works. Worst case scenario though, we could hook to this back side once we're past this cam lever. But again, I try not to mess with this mechanism as much as I can. Keeping that in mind, I'm gonna start here down at the bottom. Of course, let's make sure our hooks are always pointed away from our wheel. Once again, not wanting to do any kind of damage. And with that being said here too, much like a lug nut, we want to kind of disperse this around, right? So I'm going to be going up and away to the other side, down and across. Again, trying not to mess with that mechanism too bad. And just like that, we are installed. So you can see it's pulling that last little bit of slack in, and now that's a really good fit. I can't really pull these guys in. I can't fit a finger anywhere. So I'm really liking how that's fitting now. So I think we have a confirmed fit here today. Looks like we're nice and installed. Well, that about does it for the look at that install, which is great. Again, pretty nice and easy to get installed. There are a few easier chains out there, like that one I mentioned before, which can be great. But overall, very decent chainage you're getting here for yourself. Something that's nice and light, easy to store inside your vehicle. Now, it does come with a little bag. I will say though, that bag is really hard to fit these back into. It breaks down quite easily and rips and tears. I might recommend just a small little tote that's easy to throw these into. That way it's in your vehicle and it's not something you have to fight with every time. But overall, very decent chain here today. I think those rubber tensioners are probably gonna be a must though. I like taking out that last little bit of slack, and therefore it's going to stay nice and tight on my wheel today. Otherwise though, guys, I think that about does it for our look here today at the Glacier Chain snow cable chains here on our 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee. I'm Bobby. Thanks for watching.